I do this personally, and I wanted to share it with some folks. I did this in our school district with a group of teachers last year, but I did a different lesson. But the importance of sitting down and thinking through, you know, just a little intention setting before we start to do something can make a huge impact on how things turn out. And so what I'm going to do, I've got, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes or so of a little activity I'm going to do with you to get you thinking. And I'm going to tell you some stories that will hopefully tie together and help you think of things and then bring you a sense of, oh, some relief, and I can do this. And Amanda, I know you're not going to have your own classroom this year, but you can take everything I'm talking about and still just put it in, make it relevant for you. You're going to learn as a music teacher that you're going to go to a shit ton of professional development that's all about math and reading and science, and you have to figure out how to make it work for you. So I think you'll take the music stuff I'm talking about, probably, even though you're not a music teacher quite yet, you'll find a way to use this and the like. So as I like to start everything with my classes, there's always a format that I do, and if you spend any time with me, you'll start to feel that. And the first thing I like to do is have sort of a social or something that's really fun to draw us in. So of course, there's a Lin-Manuel song for everything. So I've got one for you now to kick back, and we'll have a 2.5 minute set the tone with some music and think about some of the words in here. And you might find some of these tools helpful or fun to use in your own classroom too. So feel free to steal anything. Be sure to let me if it doesn't work, or let me know if it doesn't work using the chat or just unmute.
The plan was get to a bus, next thing you know, the two of us are floating, drifting somewhere new. She said we'd take a shortcut, I'm trying to be a good sport, but I don't see how we make it through. Remember the size of the world before it was you and I, just you and I. And now the horizon holds so much more, and it's do or die, yeah, it's do or die. All I can do when the road bends is lean into the curve. And all I can do when the tanks run dry is see what's in reserve. And all I can do when the plans break down is stay on my feet. And all I can do at the end of the day is play on, and keep the beat. Remember the size of the world before, now it's you and I, just you and I. And now the horizon holds so much more, and it's do or die, yeah, it's do or die. All I can do when the road bends is lean into the curve. And all I can do when the tanks run dry is see what's in reserve. All I can do when the plans break down is stay on my feet. And all I can do at the end of the day is play on, keep the beat.
All I can do when the road bends is lean into the curve. That just might be the next tattoo I get to get me through the next year. So Lin-Manuel has an answer for everything, doesn't he? So welcome to those of you just hopping in. We're just gonna spend like 45 minutes to an hour together today, kind of setting up the school year. And I picked that song, and I want to present today as, you know, all you can do when the road bends is lean into the curve, but it'd sure be nice to have some GPS so you can get back on track, right? And so today I'd like to provide, by the end of this and through the activity we do together, that GPS for you, because there's going to be curves galore coming at you this year and all kinds of things in spite of all of the planning and all of our best intentions. And so we're going to plan alternate routes, or in other words, a way for you to feel grounded, or to come back to when you're going, what do I do now? What activities do I pick? Wait, this will be your grounding document that you'll have, or thing that you'll have at the end of this. So that's why I'm here. And I'm doing this because band for me, my music classes, my music family, my whole life was a place where I was safe and I felt good and I had a way to express myself. And it was just such an amazing place that I have made a career out of this, just like you. And in spite of all the challenges that have come along in the whole teaching careers, but especially these last year and a half and this year that we're coming into, you obviously feel pulled to continue to stay in your classroom and to inspire people and to give them what someone gave you at some point. So I'm going to have you thinking a little bit today about who inspired you, what inspired you, because you're inspiring people every day that walk in your room. Those kids that come in there, some little off the cuff remark you make is going to light a fire under somebody's butt this year. Say to a kid, I heard you go over the break and you didn't squeak. And they'll be like, that means I can do it. I mean, just those little things. So the power that you have every day when you walk into your classroom is magnificent and overwhelming sometimes. So let's make it as easy on you as possible to be able to enjoy. Kara came on here and she was just fired up because she's back in the school for the last couple of days and she can hardly wait to see kids. And that's how I want us to feel. For me to feel that way, I need to have a plan. It can be flexible. It's like having chord changes. I can improvise within that, but I want to have a plan. So I thought, why not share with you the process I'm going through if I can make your life a little bit easier. So thanks for showing up. You don't get paid for this or anything like that. You're just doing this on your own time. So that says a lot about your dedication in here. And so I have two modes of grocery shopping. Maybe you can relate to this. One is I'm exhausted. It's after work. I'm starving because I haven't eaten all day. You know how that is. And so I swing by the grocery store. I put all kinds of stuff in my cart. Nothing looks good. Everything looks good. I spend too much money. I get home and then I'm like, what am I going to make for dinner? There's just it, or I'm not in the mood for anything I bought, whatever. And it doesn't work really well. It's stressful. And then I haven't solved my problem. Then there's the me, 95% of the time. I get up on Saturday mornings. I make my shopping list of exactly or I look at my calendar first. What do we have going on this week? What activities, what am I going to do? What nights do I want quick meals? What nights do we want to go out and all that? Then, okay, now what meals are we going to make? Sit down. What do we got in the cupboards? What do we got in the fridge? What do we need to buy? Go to the grocery store, get it, come home and unpack it. That takes about 90 minutes. So I have to invest a little time. But once I do, the whole rest of the week is so much easier because I got the stuff I need. I've already written down a list of menus. I don't even have to think on Tuesday night, what am I going to make for dinner? I just have to go and open up the thing and go, that's going to be made for dinner. And I already know I've got everything I need. So it's easy to do. If you approach teaching the school year with like, I wonder what I'm going to do today when I walk in my classroom, or what song am I going to look for in that, it feels like that first grocery shopping experience. But if you can have more of an overarching plan and that's something that kind of keeps you grounded and you've got a long-term vision, then it's so much easier to find the activities and put it all together. And it's like investing that time in that grocery shopping list and doing the grocery shopping, and then for a whole week, it's paying dividends. You're eating healthier and better and everything. So there we go. That's my analogy with this. I hope that makes sense. And what we're going to do today is create an activity that will serve as your GPS or your shopping list, if you will, to make it easy for you or easier. I'm not going to say easy to get through the year, but easier. And I've told this before, so a couple of you have probably heard this before, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to do today's lesson with you based on what I've learned through the writing process. And most of you probably know I've written 2 books, and I hired a woman to help me because I have to show you. And I started teaching in 1988. That was a long time ago, 1988. And in 1989, I wrote this book, The Methods of Teaching. I thought I learned this is all the stuff they didn't teach us in college. And I learned it all my first year of teaching. So I put this book together, which really was just did up a bunch of stuff when I went to Kinko's and had one copy bound. So it really didn't do anybody any good. And it sounded, but I wanted to help. I've always wanted to take things I've learned, and I've learned a lot more in the last 34 years. And so finally, when I decided 3 years ago, this month actually, to write my first book. I'm like, I don't know how to really do it other than to compile stuff and put it on a shelf. So I hired a woman to help me. Her name is Angela. And Angela had, once I signed up with her, she said, you'll have your book done in 90 days. I'm like, holy crap, that's not very long. But she took a lot of money from me. So I'm like, she must know what she's doing. So I trusted her. And I showed up to that first class. This was on Zoom before any of us had heard of online learning and stuff, but she was in DC and she was coaching a bunch of us. And so I was ready for that first lesson. I signed up in August of 2018. Got on that first Zoom call. I was ready for her to tell, do we start with the introduction or chapter 1? I was ready. And then she starts with this other nonsense. She says, we're going to start by writing your flap copy. I'm like, that's not what I want to do. I want to get the book written. I'm like, what is the flap copy? So I had all these questions. She says, oh, Leslie, the flap copy is the part on the back of the book. You know, the stuff that everybody looks at when you go into the store to decide if you're going to read it. Just like I did with Megan's book when you came and saw me the other day at the bookstore, right? Checking out your flap copy, what's on there. And it's a summary basically of all the stuff that's in here. And I'm like, oh no, I'll write my flap copy when I'm done because I'll have written the book and it'll be super easy to write the summary. I was much smarter than this woman that I hired. And she's like, maybe since I'm the one you hired, you should listen to me. So I thought, well, she has a point there. So she has us write this flap copy. And I was frustrated as all get out because the flap copy, I had to really start thinking about what flap copy is basically like your lesson plan, objectives and outcomes and goals, right? I had to write that first. I thought, oh, wait a minute, that's like writing a lesson plan, right? Write the lesson plan and then here come the activity. But so often, I thought you wrote the book first and then you'd write the summary. And so often we approach our classes with what songs we'll do or what activities we'll do instead of what's our long-term goal, and then we find the right things to fit in. So as frustrating as her process was, and here we were, the first month went by and we were still doing this nonsense on the cover, back cover stuff and what we feel about and all this stuff. I'm like, she's wasting our time. Now I'm down to 60 days to write a book and I had nothing written yet except all this other stuff, no content. And then we're down to the last 30 days. I still had no content. And then she says, now you're ready to write. I said, what do I do first? She said, take that. All this stuff you wrote, and then basically breaking it down into the content. Then to break down was easy because I go, oh wait, if I'm going to do this, I need to do this, and all of a sudden making little cards about what I was going to do. And then she said, now you start, and she told us how to kind of lay out the template for it. Like it's kind of like chord progression essentially. Where's how you're doing that. So she gave us all that information, and then she said, for every chapter you write, you set a timer for 90 minutes or 2 hours, and when you are done, when the timer is done, your chapter is done, you upload it to your editor and let it go. I was like, oh, that's a horrible idea. But she was right, because if we kept on and we stayed and worked on it longer, it wouldn't work. So anyway, once we had written that flap copy, I was like, I can't write a chapter in an hour and a half or 2 hours. I actually could. It was done before the timer went off a lot of the times because I was so crystal clear on what I needed to do. I wasn't trying stuff out, and I was like, no, if I'm going to promise that I can teach somebody to do this, I'm just going to cut to the chase and teach them how to do that. And it became so much easier to write those chapters. So I want to take that approach today. You guys are going to write the flap copy for your journals. And whether or not you keep a journal, I want you to imagine you have a journal, whether it's online or whatever, and you are going to write the flap copy for your journal as if it's already done this year. And I'm going to teach you what it takes to write the flap copy because it's similar to a lesson plan. And once we go through this process, you're going to be able to, it essentially is going to be like a vision board. Okay, you can call it whatever you want, but this is focused solely on the teaching piece today and your classroom stuff. And it's going to become that basis for what you do. We're going to start with the end in mind, which is what we often do as music teachers anyway, right? Here's a performance we're going to have, and we're going to teach kids certain things, and we break it down, or the fundraisers, and we break it down. We're going to break down your teaching or your thing this way. This document, this thing you're going to create, your flap copy can be something you turn to when you're overwhelmed and you kind of lean into a curve and road bends, you forget to lean into the curve, and you can come back to it to help you get grounded because you're creating it. And you can share it with students. I'm going to share mine with my students so that they have a clear picture of what I'm there to support them in. Can share with parents at curriculum night, or you could choose not to, but if it's something that you create and you go, wow, this is what I'm doing and what we're doing in our class, maybe your class creates one of these or your students do too. So keep in mind as you watch this process, would you want to use this as a class group project or as individual projects too? So always, everything I teach you, always watch in another frame of mind how you can use that. And then the other thing, let's say you're in your evaluations, and it talks about working in with colleagues or doing other things out there, you can say, you know, these are the kinds of things I do outside of school that help me focus. These are all ways to help you, I hope. So I hope you're creating a document that serves to help you think about, you know, the things that are really important to help you be successful with your students this year. So that's my goal with you. All of us coming off of summertime, which may have been super restful or not, or we're having a hard time thinking about what's coming up or not, or we've had major life changes, and we're all in different places right now and our heads are all over the place. So what I'm going to do is what I do with my students every day. And those of you that have been in sessions with me at all, you know, one of the most important things I do with people is, as music teachers, we tune our instruments. But before I tune my students with their instruments, we tune our brains and our bodies, and we settle in and we get ready for our class. And so I want to invite you to go through the same process I do with my students every day. Hold on, I'm going to share a little bit of sound here. You should be able to just hear some soft sound in the back. If it's not there, let me know. Megan will let me know probably. And I'll invite you to do this mindfulness. I'm going to do just invite you to be comfortable and just follow along with what I invite you and ask you to do. There will be some visualization, and the things I ask you to think about when you're nice and relaxed will be the things that will come back and be super helpful for you when we start doing your flap copy. So I want you, before I have you dig in and do this, I want to help you clear your mind. And then when your mind's clear, before you do anything, to just be with some thoughts. So be comfortable. That's the first and most important thing you do. I want to invite you to bring your body into some stillness in a comfortable position. If you want to lie on the floor, I don't care. Whatever is comfortable, maybe you close your eyes or soften your gaze, but just allow yourself to just notice how your body feels right now. And just notice if your mind's full of lots of things or if it's relaxed. Just observe. And maybe you begin breathing in and out through your nose. And just notice what it feels like as you take a deep inhale. And then you exhale and allow the muscles in your face and jaw and tongue to soften. On another exhale, can you allow your shoulders to melt away from your ears and let your arms and hands become heavy as they rest wherever they land? And again, maybe you exhale and you notice how your back, sits bones, thighs, and feet anchor you into your chair. And the muscles in your body can soften towards the earth and you can just relax. Just observe how you feel. And I want you to imagine the most comfortable place you've ever been. Maybe it's curled up under the covers during a thunderstorm, or in front of a fire, or out on the beach, or in a beanbag or a hammock. Where would your body and brain be super cozy and relaxed? And what would that feel like in your body? Imagine you're there right now. And as I count from 1 to 10, can you pace your breath with my numbers, with deep inhales, and then on each exhale, allow yourself to become 10 times more relaxed than you already are. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe you start to feel heavier. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. And 10. And just notice your body right now. Does it feel any different than it did a few minutes ago? If you had to guess, would you guess that your heart rate is faster or slower than it was a few minutes ago? Our heart rate is our metronome. And when it's fast, we get tense. But when we can calm it down, we can relax and our blood pressure lowers and we feel better. while you stay relaxed, I just want to ask you to think about a couple of things. Who inspired you to be a music teacher? I want you to think about that person or the people that made you go, I want to do that. What was it about that person? How did you feel in their presence? When you walked into their classroom or their studio or to the youth symphony or wherever that was, as soon as you saw them, what did you feel like? What kind of qualities did that person have that you found to be inspiring? What were the things they did or said that spoke to you? And why? Why did you want to become a music teacher? Was there a certain way that you felt when you were playing music with friends and you wanted to create that space for others? What is your reason and why? Why do you think it's important for other students to experience this? Can you think of a few ways, in positive ways, that music has impacted your life? And imagine, how is music impacting your students' lives, especially as they struggle right now? How is music therapeutic and healing and helpful and all of those things for them? And now I want you to imagine the best version of you. What would you feel like at your best? Either imagining what it would feel like or what you have felt like when you've been in your zone, when you've been really doing things the way that you like to do them. When you're in your zone, what does a good day look like? What kind of energy do you have? Are you able to focus and do things when you're on track and you're on fire and you've got a plan and everything's lining up? And when you feel confident and supported, how do you walk into a room? Do you walk in differently? Do you carry yourself differently? Do you react or do you respond to your students differently when you feel good? And I want you to think about, when you walk out of school every day, what kind of posture do you want to have? Do you want to walk out like you're deflated and exhausted? Or can you picture yourself right now leaving your classroom with your head high and breathing in the fresh air and feeling good at the end of the day, even if you're tired, feeling good because you know the work you're doing is making a difference? While we're working on our flap copy today, that's the kind of stuff that you'll want to tap into so that you can write your flap copy, which becomes your guidance for you for this year. So before we try to do that, you'd be super groggy if I said, let's do that now. I'm going to count from 5 to 1 and invite you to start bringing a lot more movement into your body, wiggling fingers and toes and rolling out your neck and stretching, maybe yawning. The more movement you do while I count from 5 to 1, the more easily you will be able to reverse that relaxation process and feel super focused and alert and ready to move on. So 5, 4, floating those eyes open when you feel ready. 3, oh, big stretches feel good. 2, and 1. Get that energy moving so you don't get sleepy. Turn that music off. Okay, so rather than just ask you to, start jumping right into the process or the activity I had planned, I wanted to give you some time to just maybe think and visualize and the like. And to those of you that joined us, Megan and Ramona, after I had started some music, thanks for joining us today. I'm super happy that you came here. So we're going to do an activity. I think you heard everything else I was describing. And then, so I made a nerdy little PowerPoint because I've learned to use PowerPoints as an online teacher, and they're really cool. No, but they're kind of helpful here. So what are the steps to creating a flap copy? And honestly, like I told you before, the flap copy took me longer to create than actually writing the book because it was a new process for me. Because you are teachers and you write lesson plans and we're talking about school stuff, it won't probably take you 2 months like it did me to try to figure all of this out. But there are 4 key parts to to a good flap copy. There's a headline, something that grabs your attention right off the bat, the big words right up at the top. And then there's a shorter description, but it's that gets you a little more information. And then some benefits statements, usually some bullet points that tell why you would want to read this book, if we're talking about a book, or in your case, why somebody would want to open your journal to see all the cool stuff you did with your classes this year, because that's what you're writing about, is all the things that what you're doing this year. Here comes my cat to assist me, my assistant cat. She helps me teach all my classes. And then finally, a summary statement. So let me show you the fake, oh, my cat's nails are too long. She just hurt me. The PowerPoint I created for you. Here we go. I got distracted when she came up here. So you should be seeing the Empowered Music Room. So imagine this is the back of a book called, and so the first thing, and I'm going to give you a template in a few minutes, so you don't have to write anything down. I'm going to give you a link that has a template so you can create your own, but I want to give you a sample first of these things. So the first thing we need is a headline. So here we go. And I'm going to share this with my students. Music Ed 2.0, ready or not, here we grow. This has been my theme actually since last year. I thought that was Music Ed 2.0, and I thought we'd be starting like a normal school year and the pandemic would be over this year. Well, surprise, really, I should be in like Music Ed 2.14 version or whatever it is. But I want my students to know that we together are creating something new. We're not just going to be in the ensembles like we used to be. We've learned so much through a year and a half of virtual stuff. We're going to be incorporating stuff. We're going to have, things are going to be different, and I'm hopefully much even better. But that's my, if you will, that headline, right? So up here, I've put my name and what my class is. You might want to put, Mr. Bull's band room might be your thing up here. But the first piece of the headline here, of it here, is we've got our headline and then a description. And I'm going to ask you to describe how you want students to feel in your presence. So your template's going to actually say, in my presence, students feel, and then you'll decide how they feel. And then so they can blank. And this is mine. This was mine last year, was in my presence, students feel peaceful. And I've added for this year, and supported. Because I'm going to be asking them to, really step out of their comfort zones as we come back into the classroom after not playing together for a year and a half. They're going to need to really have some trust. I want them to feel peaceful and supported so they can authentically express themselves as artists. Because we all know if kids are nervous and worried, they're not going to take risks and grow. They'll only do what's comfortable. So part of the reason I do what I did with you guys a few minutes ago with all of my classes every day is to help everybody feel peaceful before we start class. And when we practice that at the beginning of every class, that becomes the norm. So then it becomes easier to teach. So I write this down. I make this a point to talk about with my students, to talk about with the parents at Open House, to make sure my administrators understand this is a big part of what I do. Then these are, this is my benefits statements, if you will. These are the bullet points of why you should buy my book. Or if you open my journal, you will see proof of these things, because I will have journaled about students enthusiastically participate in our classes and performances. Notice I'm not writing students will enthusiastically. I'm writing it as if it's already done. That's a mindset, and I go a lot into mindset when I love talking about that. But if you put they will, then you're waiting for that to happen in the future. So we're writing this as if it's already happened, because that's how we're going to do it, okay? And students are independent musicians who can play alone and with others. Yours are going to look different than this, but this is what I'm putting. Students participate in a wide variety of music activities that support them in growing as artists and as members of our classroom community. So you can see that what I'm putting here aren't things like students will be able to play a B flat major scale at 2 octaves at quarter note equals 120 beats. No, they'll be able to do that. That will, because they're independent musicians who can play alone and with others. But I will determine the activities we do and the like based on I'll come back to this, and every single decision I make about the lessons I teach, the activities we do, the performances we do, the things that we take on has to support this. That makes saying no easy when I need to, if it doesn't support kids here. So what will the students do this year? They'll enjoy the music making process and have fun with their peers while learning to be part of something bigger than themselves. And I think that's going to look different than big ensembles every day, all day, like they used to. But I still want them to enjoy the music making process and have fun making music with their peers, because that's a big draw. That's what keeps them coming back, so I can teach them more. And then then the band room is a safe place where everyone feels safe, valued, or is a place where everyone feels safe, valued, and respected. because again, they can't feel peaceful and supported, they can't take risks, and they won't. So these are my benefit statements. If I were to read my journal a year from now, I'm going to see evidence of these things, because I'm right now determining that all of the things I do in my classroom are going to support this. Okay, and then finally, the summary statement, and I'll read mine to you, even though I know you can all read. In a world where students are experiencing trauma, anxiety, depression, and a myriad of other confusing emotions, the music classroom provides a space and a medium for helping students identify, process, and appropriately express what they are experiencing. Whether it's through composing an original song, curating a playlist to create a specific mood, or performing with their peers in an ensemble, Mrs. Moffat's Empowered Music Room is the place students gather to learn, play, and share their artistic gifts and talents. Okay, that's what I want to have happen in my classroom this year. So just like my publisher did with me and said, you put it on the flap copy first, and then you tell everybody how it happens. That's what we're going to do. So this will be posted in my classroom. This will be posted in my, here in my home. It will be as I sit down to lesson plan, making sure whatever I'm coming up with this year comes back to this. That makes my life easier, not harder. Okay. And if anybody has questions along the way, please interrupt me if you want to at all, because that's why I did this as a meeting instead of a webinar, so that we could just be super informal. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I'm going to give you a link to in a second. And then I'm going to put a song on that lasts 8 minutes for you to start drafting one for yourself. And you're going to get a link where you'll have one of these where you can actually take this template and create your own. But this is basically what I just put on the PowerPoint that I showed you, as if it was flat copy on the back of a book. And then you're going to do it here. So I called mine Mrs. Moffat's Empowered Music Room. You come up with whatever you want here. And then what's your headline? Mine was Music Ed 2.0. You'll think of something, maybe not in this moment, but something will come to you. And then finding a picture of you. And again, you might not be able to do all of this now, but I want you to have this template and I want you to start thinking about this. Find a picture of you when you felt like, yes, I'm on top of the world. Maybe it's at the end of a race you were running and you're like, oh, or something like that, or whatever it is. Put a picture of you when you felt like, you could conquer the world. And then your description, I want you to write, how do you want students to feel in your presence? And just use this simple thing here. In my presence, students feel blank, so they can. That's exactly what I did. Exactly what I did. And so when it comes to classroom management or calling on when a kid's behavior happens or anything, I want students to feel supported and peaceful, even if we're having hard conversations and stuff. So I committed to that here. You commit to what you want. Then what are your benefit statements? Now, this is important. Not what activities are you going to do with your kids, but what do you want? I always ask myself 3 questions with everything I do, with you guys, with any keynote I'm giving, with student classes I'm teaching, whatever it is. What do I want people to know, do, and feel as a result of the time we spend together? So as a result of my students being in my class this year, I want them to know, do, and feel these things. I put those bullets like that. Okay, yours will look different, and they should look different, right? If I took the flap copy from somebody else's book and tried to write my own book with it, that'd be just weird, right? This is just a template. It's the chord progression. You get to make up your own melodies. And then the summary statement, a sentence or two. This is why you believe that the work you're doing is so important. When you have to advocate for your program and for students and all of those things, it's often hard to find the words and to know what to say. So thinking through this right now, when your superintendent pops in your classroom and, they're talking, oh, we don't know if we're going to be able to, numbers are down this year, blah, blah, blah. You could say, this has been a really tough year and students are able to use our classroom to help process the trauma and anxiety that they're dealing with right now, because this is a healthy way for them to do. Think through this, and this could be really good in lots of ways for you. And again, it becomes that foundation for finding the activities and the things that support these goals that you are identifying as being super important. So I'm stopping the share for a minute so that I can get the link. I'm pushing the wrong buttons. Here we go. I just thought I was so good at this. I'm going to put a Google link, and I had my husband check it, so it should work, that you can open, and you'll actually see what I just showed you, and you can download it. And then you can do that. You could handwrite your own flap copy. You could do it in a Word document. Maybe you're fancy and you want to go in Publisher or Canva and make it look fancy. It doesn't matter. whatever works the best for you to do that. And I'm going to put on a piece of music for 8 minutes. And I think it's important. Hi, Kathy, thanks for joining us. I think it's important that I don't just say, here, do this, and then say, I'll see you later. But I want you to have a little time to process this. And then after you've had a chance to do this, if anybody wants to either share out one of your bullet points or a screen share of what you came up with or a piece of it or ask questions, we can do that. That's what I would really like to do. And while the music's playing and people are working, if you want to chat in the chat box or you have anything with me directly you want to ask, feel free to do that. But I'm going to put on an 8-minute piece of music. It should appeal whether you're a string teacher or whatever you teach. I think this will come in handy for you, or you'll recognize it. So enjoy this. I'm going to mute myself, but I will stay on the chat. And in 8 minutes, I'll be back to see what you've come up with or to ask. Can you hear it? I love using that piece of music because Mozart meets Gordon Goodwin. It's just, it's like a little flashback and flash forward. So hopefully that gave you some time to start thinking about some of that. And here's where I'm going to ask if anybody would like to share out something that you, maybe something you wrote, either one of your statements, like your headline or your description, or a statement or something, or show us a screen of what you did, or y'all gonna avoid eye contact and we're gonna do like, oh. Oh, right, Kathy. Yes, Kathy's bringing it in.
Sorry, I was late. I got the time wrong and just got home and had to eat something. And then I came on and saw, oh, it started at 4, not 5.
Well, I'm glad you joined us. It probably seemed a little weird what we were doing. We were writing our flap copies for the back of a book. Essentially, it was as if it's a journal for the end of this next year. So
Yeah, I
you
figured.
might have picked. Okay, cool. Well, what are you going to share with us? And wait, what do you teach and where?
I teach elementary music, but I've been to a couple of your things. If I'd been born a little bit later, I would have been a band director probably. But as it turned out, I ended up being a French horn player in an orchestra, and then started teaching elementary music about 20 years ago.
Oh,
So
cool.
so anyway, um, so I really appreciate the materials you've put out in the last year and a half, or anyway, when I first came across them.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wrote the description. In my presence, students feel safe and inspired so they can feel free to find their musical voice.
That's powerful. I love that. And so if you're encountering things this year that don't help support that, then you have to go, is this a good call? And one of the things I was finding that in my case was my kids were getting overbooked, so many things they had to do. And I had to start going, if I want students to be successful in my classroom, I can't wear them out and have them so exhausted. Okay. So it's different, obviously, in our different location, or what you've got with elementary and stuff, but you can use that to help, if you want them to feel that peace and that. But say that one more time. You had 2 words in there that I really liked.
My present, students feel safe and inspired.
Inspired. Yeah. Did you have a teacher that inspired you or was there somebody that inspired you to be a teacher?
Yes, but he also discouraged me. You know,
Interesting.
girls couldn't be band directors.
My mom was told that by the University of Washington. They said it's not an appropriate choice for a female.
Yeah.
So she married a band director so she could live vicariously through him. Yeah, but isn't that, now we can understand when people want to do things and what it feels like to not be able to pursue a dream.
Yeah. Well, I found something that was probably better for me for a while. So, I got to play in an orchestra and I got to travel around the world. So
That's pretty cool. And thank you for teaching elementary. None of us at the upper levels could do anything if you instill the love and the joy of music. And it's such important work that happens at that elementary level. And it's got to be really hard.
It is wonderful.
Oh, it's the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
It is the absolute foundation. Nothing else matters if we don't have that there. So I bow down to all of you that can do that elementary stuff with that. It must take so much energy. Oh my goodness.
Well, right now we just learned yesterday that we can't sing even with masks on. No singing in the elementary classroom in Seattle.
So it'll be challenging.
Another year of making stuff up.
Oh man. So we have our first back to school meetings tomorrow. So I'll be interested to see what is going on. And so, yeah, I have no concrete plans yet. I know I have my flat copy, so I know what I'll stick to, but it's not probably going to be still traditional music playing like that. Oh, Kathy. Well, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. Who else is willing to share with us today?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you. That silence, how awkward can I get?
I know. It's okay. So in my presence, students feel enthusiastic and empowered so that they can create meaningful musical experiences.
Ooh, I like you put meaningful musical experiences in there. Cool. Say that one more time for me. They feel
Enthusiastic and empowered.
Empowered. Okay, enthusiastic and empowered. Okay, great. I want to be in your class. Be enthusiastic and empowered. And music does a lot of that work, but we just have to be creative this year in how we're gonna be able to do this. Anybody else have anything you want to share? A bullet point, a summary statement, a picture, your headline?
So we kind of have this in our band handbook, something kind of similar to this, like our mission statement and then our bullet points. But I'm kind of at a point where I'm at a parochial school, so a lot of it has to be focused on that side of things. But I'm also band is that safe space for a lot of kids, and it's the only space to be authentically themselves. So I'm like straddling this line where I need to do what's right for my students, but I also have to incorporate the school's values and try to reckon those with my own. So I'm kind of at a weird spot. So I can share what I've wrote, but I'm struggling to put the Christian part that they've had, in the handbook with the part where we have to focus on what's right for our students and what's right for them musically. And we all know, in band and in music, it just calls to a variety of people and that don't always fall in the typical parameters, myself included. So it's kind of hard for me. I love that you put safe space. I love that you put safe space. I love that you put authentically yourself, like things like that. So I want to be able to incorporate that, because even the language that I had to put in my handbook this year, they corrected it. It had to be young ladies and gentlemen. And I hated that. I didn't like that non-inclusive language. So I really love what everybody's doing with so much inclusion and safe space.
Awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. Little bit different way of thinking about it. I'm glad you mentioned that to us. And part of what I brought up wasn't so you'd all have this completed today. It was to start you thinking like this. And this will become a tool, and you might change it and refine it. But if you don't think about this, then you don't, it's like getting in the car and driving without knowing where you're going. You just wander aimlessly, right? Or try to find random activities to do along the way, just to get through classes instead of, I panicked last year when we went virtual. I was like, well, wait a minute, all I've ever done for 33 years is in-person band with ensembles. I mean, for real. I didn't know how to assess or communicate or do any of that. It was such a foreign language that, and I don't remember why I just now brought this up, but it was somehow related to what you were talking about. Having to just redo things in such different ways and like, yeah, go ahead, Jesse.
Well, the needs of the students have just changed so much I just see it evolving. Like they just have more emotional needs right now and in the past 2 years than we have. I had a little guy tell me, like, Tuesday in class, he started to get upset. He's like, my mom can't sign my band instrument rental form. I was like, oh, that's okay. Don't stress about it. We'll figure it out. And he's like, no, she's in the hospital. She has COVID. And I had no idea. I was just floored. I didn't know what to say. Like, I'm friends with this mom. She's a single mom. Like, we're in a small program. We all know each other. Like, I know every parent. And so it was just like, we weren't prepared for that. No one in the class was prepared for that. No one knew what to say. Like, he hadn't told any of his teachers. He hadn't told anyone else. Our class was where he said it. And we were just like, all we said was, we love you. Like, we're thinking about you. Like, we didn't know what to say. And then
that was the space he felt he could say it.
Right. So then today he brought back his form to me and he's like, hey, mom's home. She's still sick, but she signed my paper for me. And I was like, it's okay. You don't have to. This kid like wants to do everything by the book. So he was so concerned about that form. Like he was very worried that his grade would be whether he had this form or not, which in my class is just not that big of a deal. Like we got to get the instruments out. And we got to get the form signed. But sometimes we focus so much on that. So I love that you're focusing on making it more of a safe space and that we focus on our feelings and that now, because sometimes with band and with choir, we're focused on, well, checking this instrument out and doing this thing and checking this off our list and following curriculum, and we're not focused. So it just like, I was trying to get all the things on my checklist done. So it just took me by surprise. So I just really like the authenticity of how you put it all down.
Well, a lot of it, I remember why I was saying what I said before, because you made me think of this, is when we went to that emergency learning and I didn't know how to teach band or whatever online, I went to NAFME's national standards, and it talks about students will play independently and with others. And here I was thinking that had to look like band, but and so we had, I went to the standards, and how can I do that in a, and make it safe for people, and doing that, but still teaching music. And like Kathy just said, now they can't sing as a choir teacher, but she can still she'll probably be real creative with body percussion or all of the, all these other ways. She'll still teach them music, and we can, anchoring again to NAFME standards or whatever, but using the music to let kids. I had a student tell me one time, she said it so beautifully. She said, music's not going to cure it all, but it helps us cope. I was like, damn, out of the mouths of smart juniors, it was after a school shooting, and I said to the kids, I don't know what to say. I don't know, because it happened real close by and stuff, and we were on a retreat when it happened, and one of the kids, his uncles taught there, and they couldn't reach him, and so we were all like that. And I said, I don't know what to do or say. And somebody said, can we just use music? And then she said, it won't cure. And I was just like, oh. And then when this year that came back to me a lot, a lot of kids didn't have either the ability or wherewithal to play their instruments at home during Zoom classes at 7:30 in the morning. So for them, it was curating a playlist to help them sleep, or to help them focus, or to tune out all the chaos around them. So music can be used in all these different ways. And we, it might look different than it has in the past, but we, as the professionals, as the people in the forefront, as the music educators, we understand the power that music has with our kids. And we know that we'll deliver it however we have to, because this is where so many marginalized kids show up, so many kids who are struggling. And if we thought kids were coming from situations that were hard and dealing with trauma before the pandemic, that was nothing compared to what they've seen and heard. There's chaos out there. They're witnessing stuff. Some of their parents might not be giving them some of the same information we'd like them to get about things. So the kids come to school very confused. And so it's a confusing time for everybody. And that music classroom is such a beautiful space. And it's such a privilege to be in there and to get to do what we do. That's why I couldn't retire. I ended up I found a way to make it sustainable so I can stay in this job, because I see how important this work we're doing is. It's hard and frustrating. Sometimes you're like banging your head on the wall going, really? And then, those kids, it's that space where they can talk, and they have a place where the people support them and stuff. It's more than music teaching, y'all know that. It's our communities. Anybody else have anything else you want to share out or bring up before we wrap it? Well, I'm really glad that you guys showed up today. I appreciate this. I love talking about this kind of stuff. This is my passion. It's what I've done my whole life, what my dad did before him, my grandma before that, except she taught orchestra. Grandma did, because women didn't teach band back then either, back in those days. But being able to share things that have helped me stay in my career instead of having to retire because I was too mentally and physically exhausted. I've had to create ways to make the job not so stressful, and things like this flap copy or a vision board, or thinking through an intentional way to start your school year, for me, makes the next 180 days easier. And then I'm a better teacher because I'm not so frustrated and freaked out. So I just wanted to share. So thank you for showing up. If this was helpful for you and you're not part of my Music Ed Masterclass and would like more of this kind of stuff, reach out to me and I'll tell you more about that. Some of you I will see next Tuesday at different link. We have our different link for that, so make sure you use the proper link. I just got a message while you guys were journaling that one of the people in Music Ed Masterclass was sitting on that link waiting for us. I'm like, no, that's not where we are. So she'll watch the recording. So anyway, if anybody comes up with anything or questions when you're doing this, or just wants to run it by or share it with me after this session, you're welcome to send it to me or to reach out for anything else. But thank you for the work you're doing. Thanks for showing up today. I hope this was helpful. And Amanda, I'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early. All right, everybody, make it a great day. Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.